Good evening. Welcome to the January 7th, 2013 Washougal City Council meeting. If you would, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rose, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Greenlee?
Here.
Councilmember Plinsky?
Here.
Councilmember Boger? Councilmember Lindsay?
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel?
Here.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
Here.
Councilmember Freeman?
Here.
Happy New Year.
Councilmember Boger has contacted us and let us know that he's running a few minutes late, but will hopefully be here for the meeting. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Just as a matter of personal privilege, I'd like to explain I have a bad cold, which is why I'm wearing a mask. I don't want to give it to anybody here.
Back to the question. Any amendments to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, the first item that we have this evening is a proclamation for National Mentoring Month. Whereas National Mentoring Month provides an opportunity to recognize and commend the efforts of mentoring programs and raise community awareness of the importance of mentoring, and whereas the future of the city of Washougal rests on the hopes and dreams of its children and youth, and whereas mentors are caring and motivating individuals who are good listeners, offering support and encouragement, and providing a consistent role model, and whereas young people greatly benefit from mentors who can encourage self-confidence and positive attitude, inspire them in their education endeavors, inform them of the importance of healthy relationships with their friends and families, and educate them on the perils of drug and alcohol abuse and delinquent behavior. And whereas research has shown that mentored youth are 52% less likely to skip a day of school, 46% less likely to start using drugs, and 27% less likely to start drinking. And whereas mentoring provides mentors the opportunity to learn about themselves, improve their own values and morale, and get a fresh perspective on their lives. And whereas there are many various local mentoring programs that have made significant contributions to our community by offering outstanding services to youth in the city of Washougal. And whereas the city of Washougal commends all the mentors in our community for their valuable contributions and for the services they provide to our youth as they encourage others to make a difference in the life of the city of Washougal's youth. Now therefore, I, Sean Gard, Mayor of Washougal, do hereby proclaim January 2013 as National Mentoring Month. Okay, and with that, it will bring us to the first opportunity in the agenda for this evening for any members of the public that would like to address council. Good evening, Harvey.
Last year, Harvey Olson, 3903 R Street. Last month at a very vigorous town hall meeting attended by well over 100 people in the aisleways and hallways, I heard the biggest complaint was the amount of money charged for a minimum of 10 units of water. Well, I don't know how many units makes up 10 units. How many gallons? I went home and I found out that my better half and I are being charged over $100 a month, and we certainly don't use what I would consider 10 units of water. And a city council member said that at one time that he doubled his water usage and only was charged $3 extra. So apparently it was just barely over the 10-unit measurements. So I glanced through the 2013 budget, and on page 65, I'm asked everybody to get a copy. And unfortunately, the 2013 budget that I made a whole bunch of pen scratches on, trying to figure out and add and subtract and so forth. And you have the water sales for, in front of you, all the years 2010, 11, 12, and projected in 2013. Every year, it shows a ending fund balance, and I have no idea, because you got to remember, I went to grade school in the 1930s, and we were taught simple math. And apparently, this is not simple math, even though it appears to be. So you have a balance every year over and above expenditures for the amount of money charged for water and sewer. And I just have a question: is the amounts that are over the expenditures for the sales of water, are they accumulative? Or do they end up someplace? Are they added together? Because when I add all these together and combinations of, I can't come up with the figure of ending fund balance of $4,077,000, $459 at the end. And if you took all of the beginning fund balance for each year, the revenues and the expenditures, yeah, I can't make heads or tails out of this, folks. I'm sorry, but I just can't figure it out. So I have a question. If we do have the excess amount of money collected, and what I see here in front of me, I would suggest that we could reduce the payments everybody makes by at least 25%. If it's a method of accumulating a whole bunch of money in reserves for use of water, sewer, or whatever, it's certainly, I can't find it any place in the 100 pages or 90 pages of the budget. Like I brought up one point here earlier, several weeks ago, that there are no details in the budget, none. Yeah, you have to go to workshop meetings of the city council. You have to have special meetings with the finance director. I don't know how anybody can figure out what's going on in this budget, and especially the water department.
Harvey, if you would,
I'm done.
no worries, if you would touch base with Jennifer later, I'm sure that she can give you a very simple explanation.
I would think everybody here would like to know the answer. Is it cumulative, or is it just a one-shot deal?
There are not huge amounts of reserves. It starts over every year, so the ending fund balance is the ending fund balance only for that year.
I didn't hear you, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Don't add the numbers together. The ending fund balance is the ending fund balance for a year. You can't add them all together. That's not the way it accounts.
Well, even at that, there's still $4 million left over for 2013.
Jennifer, you think it's a number lower than that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you want to touch base with Jen later, she can take you through
I
it.
don't.
Okay.
Because I can pay my bill. I'm just thinking of a way for every homeowner to get their
Any
reduction.
other members that would like to address council? Good evening, Mark.
Mark Rohr, 343 7th Street in Washougal. We rented for a long time, Mary and I, and this year we finally bought a house. And because I thought the rental rates were going up every year, and I thought it was ridiculous, and paying for somebody else's land. But then I get my first water bill, and then the second water bill, and it just keeps going up all the time. And I found out probably why my rent was going up all the time too. I hope that the council members really investigated this problem. I think you did, but we need to think of the people on a fixed income that are getting higher bills that they just can't pay. And what are they gonna, if they pay the city the water rates that they're getting now, what are they gonna cut in their personal life? That's just my statement on that end. Secondly, I'm a big public transportation advocate. I used to come to city council meetings probably for 5 or 6 years, every one of them. And I got busy with life and things happened and I went to work, and I always say that I should come back and start my own where I used to be. We need to support public transportation, and Connie Jo, we had a little talk before, and I think she's going to be a good representative. I also agree that we need to have our own seat on the C-Tran board, and I think every one of the city council people should support that issue. You know, even Camas, they should be supporting that issue where they have their own voice. One voice for 2 large cities. I think we're large cities. And then Battleground and all the other little towns, they have no voice. They have to share their voice with 2 other cities. It's not the way the thing should happen. And I think the board supports all that, and the council supports that. But we need our own voice on that. And public transportation is very important. I don't know if you have anybody that rides public transportation in your family, but I'm sure if you look deep enough that there's somebody in your life that does that. And paratransit is paramount for the disabled and the people that are unable to ride the fixed route buses. 7, 8 years ago, they were thinking about cutting service out here completely, gone. And Mary and I, we held signs. Like I told Connie, I almost got arrested up on 192nd Avenue for holding signs, and we really need that service. And if it ever comes to where we start losing services, the council needs to make a direct and positive action against making sure that we don't lose service out here in Washougal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Good to see you. Anyone else from the public that would like to address council? Yes.
Gary Garland, 1037 B Street. Your rates have more than doubled in 4 years, and I'm on a fixed income. You're going to run every old person out of town.
Thank you, Gary. Any other members that would like to address council? Good evening.
Good evening. Rudy Williams. I live on 33rd and A Street. I've been there I've been in Washougal for over 30-something years, but I've lived in this particular property since 2004. And I want to change the subject, lighten you guys up on this water bill. It has to do with water, but I'm paying $20 a month for storm drainage, wastewater, that goes in the middle of the street in a sinkhole, that the only way it gets empty is when the school buses go around my corner. This street is 1 block long. It's not even 200 feet. And the city seems to want to use that street because it's an easy way off 32nd to do whatever they need to do. And I don't have a problem with that. But I do have a problem with there's no sewer. Well, we have a sewer, obviously, but we don't have any storm drains. The nearest storm drain's 5 blocks away, or at least at 32nd Street on the main. And now it's costing me $20 a month. So it's 16 and change. You might know that, I don't know.
Hopefully it's only about 11 a month.
Well, I don't think so, because my bill is 20, and I ain't seen a dime of it in 8 years that I've owned the property, and it's existed.
The bi-monthly rate is currently at $20.98, so that's for 2 months.
Yay, I'm close.
Understood.
Okay. Monthly, bi-monthly, whatever. Anyway, the point is, either dig a ditch in the road and let it run out into the part of the property I think the city might own, because 32nd or 33rd Street used to run through to Addy. When they built that low-income development through that area, I'm still in the farm part of it, okay, but the water went somewhere. Well, why is it costing me all this money for the rainwater? Either that or I can accumulate it. Maybe I can sell it to the city for drinking water, and we'll save all the citizens some money. Anyway, that's it. I just, whatever.
Thank you, Rudy.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else that would like to address council?
Hello, you guys. Kenny Bavoso. I'm from 640 19th Street, Washougal. I also run thegorge.com, which is a local blog here. So what happens after 2015, you guys, in terms of water rates? Are they going to continue to go up? Do they then go down? What do we look at as citizens after that date? Is there a forecast?
Well, typically what would happen is in 2014, 2015, we would start another rate analysis to see what we need to do with rates going out beyond that.
Okay.
Dave, in the discussions with FCS lately, will that push that out any farther, or would we still be on that same timeline?
We're not proposing that we have council do anything with rates beyond 15 until we get to 14.
Okay.
There was in the previous, and there currently is, forecasts that are tentative and preliminary. They'll get perfected as actuals happen over the years, so that we have some idea about what's out there in the future, but nothing that's actionable.
So as citizens, generally, we don't know after that. There's a number that I hear of $264 a base rate. Does that happen in 2015, guys, or 2014? 2015. So I look at that number and then I say, after that number, what sort of the forecast are we looking at? Okay, cool, it's going to go down, or are we looking at now $300 in 2016? I mean, and again, maybe it's hard to speculate on that.
Some of that-
currently in the environment you have.
Some of that's in flux right now. I believe what we believed in 2010 when the rates were adopted that are in place today is that come 2015, we would be back to the council with the additional work that would finish out the capital improvements, which would likely entail some additional debt, which would affect the rates, but it wouldn't be anywhere near the debt that we had to pick up to do the first batch of the improvements.
Okay.
The reason that it's in flux is because of bidding, climates, all that type of stuff. We are actually being more efficient with the dollars that we received in the first round of bonding, and are going to be able to do more with that than what we thought we were going to do. So that's going to affect some of those additional rates in the future as well,
Okay.
meaning they're already accounted for.
Gotcha. Okay, I mean, I have several.
It's a difficult question to ask, and like I mentioned to the folks at the meeting 3 weeks ago, even the last rate analysis that was done was almost 2.5 years in the making, and that's why you start so early. There are so many things that affect that thing. It's an extremely complex rate analysis to go through.
Okay. I know I have just a couple minutes, so I don't want to take too much more time. Will there be more time later in the
There
this
is.
evening to sort of ask more questions, kind of drill down into some other elements that might be relevant?
Yes, there's always a second portion of public comments later in the agenda, and we may, actually, I've got some information that we're going to bring forward from staff, so I may,
Okay.
as we get to that point, ask the council for some forbearance and move that public comment period till almost the very end of the meeting, so that you've got the benefit of all the discussions that
Cool.
we have
Okay,
this
I'll
evening.
wait to hold off on any other questions till the end of the meeting.
No worries.
Thank you, guys.
You bet. Anyone else that would like to address council? Good evening, Marilyn.
Good evening, council people. I'm Marilyn Terrell, and I live at 950 G Street. First of all, I have a question, which is, all these people who are leaving town to save money, I wish I knew where they were going, because I'd like to go too. It's got to be cheaper someplace, it says. And this month, I only used 3 units of water, so I've got 7 to share with somebody wants it. About 6 weeks ago, I had difficulties with the animal control with the Humane Society. And the rules are made by council, as we discussed at the time, and I would like to know what if any changes have been come up since that time. Councilmember Lindsay suggested that members of the staff at the Washougal, Camas Washougal, West Columbia Gorge Humane Society, there we go, could bill people who were in the situation of having an animal in there on the weekend and pay their bills on Monday, the same as we bill for water and probably other things. And I'm wondering if any, what ideas have come forth since then?
Jen, do you have any updates on the?
We're working with West Columbia Gorge Humane Society to see about them receiving money on the weekends and trying other options. We finally were able to meet with the director with schedules and everything. It was hard to actually sit down, but we had a very good meeting, and we are working on different options for the future.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Janice?
I'm Janice Ellis, 2710 East Street, Washougal. Before we go too far, I don't know what the problem was with the Humane Society, so if we could maybe clarify what the problem was, so we could be interested in knowing what she's saying. I've had people ask me, why can't we have the city council meetings at 7 o'clock in the evening versus 6, so they can attend? I'm just offering that as a suggestion for the future, possible. You want people to attend, that might be one option. I guess what I wanted to do was kind of, and you people know this because we all live here, people that are retired on fixed income, and I am on a fixed income. This is some of the payments we have to make every month. And water is gone way up. I use less than 3 units, so I'm getting charged the whole thing. My suggestion is, let's go charge what we use. I'll pay what I use. I just don't want to pay that amount of money and keep going in debt when things keep rising. People rent, they have rental insurance possibly. People that have houses, they have house payment. We have house taxes, property taxes. We have to have an auto. So we have an auto loan possibly, even after 60. Auto insurance, auto maintenance, oil, gas, etc., auto repair. I had a light go out of my car, my little car, $119 to have my light repaired. Because the cars are made now that you have to take the tire off, take the inner side of the car out just to put the light in. Years ago, I put the light in. I can't do that. That's $119. PUD, and that's going to go up. Food, we have to eat. Telephone, people have computers. People have natural gas. Health insurance premiums. Prescriptions, people over 60 particularly have medical issues. We have to have medication. We have to have water. People have pets. They have vet bills. They have pet food. And when they can't afford anything, you know who's going to suffer? The animals. They'll starve. I worked with the Humane Society in the past. I've done a lot of work with feral cats, trying to prevent them from being born. And you see them starve. If you see an animal starve, you won't forget it. That's going to be cut out. These people are going to just abandon their cats and dogs like they're doing now. They're going to go to the Humane Society, and you're going to have a whole big problem there. Extras, birthdays and Christmas. These people that don't have the money, what are they going to do for birthdays and Christmas? Just a suggestion. These are some of the things we have to pay out required. We can't keep going up on everything, and water, I think, is just it's too high for me and a lot of other people. And there was another subject I was going to talk about, and I forgot. So I'll do it later.
Thank you, Janice. Anyone else that would like to address council?
No water, no drainage.
No worries.
This is an issue I've had earlier. And this is a city of Washougal accepted money from the state of Washington, Fish and Game, to build a boat ramp at Hathaway Park, which has no wheelchair access. I have a dear friend I've known since a very young age who cannot access that to go fishing. Why can't we make it so he can at least, the sidewalk ends, you dump 10, 15 tons of sand in there, which is gonna be gone by spring because it's gonna all wash away. And probably half the improvements that we put into that park, and don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful place and it's a big improvement. And many of the citizens in town are appreciative of that. But can we get the kid in a wheelchair to go fishing? We did it everywhere else. We did it on a tunnel. We've done it at the dock, everywhere else. But we do have disabled people that would like to use these services, and money well spent. It wasn't that big of a deal to make it so he could do that. We have to carry him in his wheelchair to the spot and bring him out physically. And he has a powered wheelchair. It's not like, you know, he can do things, he just can't get there because he gets stuck. So if we could look at that issue, figure out a way, it doesn't even have to be expensive, gravel, anything. It would be good for them.
We'll ask the questions, Rudy. I know when I was down there the day before we dedicated that ramp, there was actually a gentleman down there in a wheelchair,
That was Shane, yes.
and the ramp itself
Right.
is accessible to go down. It was when he got to the end of it, there weren't any options there, and I
Right,
don't know.
personally took the metal that they left over from the reinforcement of the rebar. There was one sheet, I don't know, 4 to 6 feet wide by 12 feet long, and we put it in the sand so that he could not sink to get, he didn't have to go very, I mean, we're only talking like 12 or 15 feet, and he could have got to the place where all the local fishermen and stuff went. And he, we did that, but then they took it away. Then we put other things in there, and of course it was taken away, so. But what, just the point is, he likes to fish too, and he's not the only one. We have, you know, we carry him even in canvas, I know that doesn't have anything to do with us, down the bank to the river to do that. And if we could do something with Hathaway, it'd be great.
We'll ask the questions. Anyone else that would like to address council? Okay. Going into the consent agenda. The consent agenda this evening, we've got 2 items on. Our council minutes of December 3rd, 2012, and our regular accounts payable claims in the amount of $494,552.39. Council?
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Paul's asking for unanimous consent to
I'm
approve
sorry.
it. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Other business, recommendation of the Appointments Committee. You should have come out to you last week a copy of the Appointments Committee recommendations that were completed on Friday of this last week. I think at this point, we're looking for any discussion and/or motions to approve.
Put a motion on the floor. I move that we approve the recommendation of the Appointments Committee.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendations of the Appointments Committee. Council discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just one thing I wanted to mention. Excuse me. I'm listed for Mosquito Control Board. If there's anybody who is interested in doing that, I would certainly give it up. It's not at all a burden. It meets 4 times a year. And it's kind of fun because you have representatives from all of the small cities and from each of the county commission districts and 3 from Vancouver. And you all sit around and try to figure out how to do the best job you can on eliminating disease-bearing mosquitoes from Clark County. I like it. It's kind of fun. But if anybody else wants to do it, you're, I'm fine with
Paul, I
that.
wouldn't dream of taking that away from you. You're already dressed for it.
And the other thing is, I've been doing the liaison to the Port of Kamis-Washougal now since before it was created. I mean, before the liaison position was created. And if somebody wants to take that position on as an official matter, I'm willing to give that up. I will continue to go to the meetings because I'm pretty well plugged in over there. But if someone would like the title and the imprimatur, you're welcome to it.
Well, Mayor, as we discussed during the Appointments Committee meeting, I'm interested in expanding my economic development involvement. I'd be willing to do that if,
That's fine.
okay.
So I move that we amend the motion on the floor to name Brent Boger as the liaison to the Port of Kamis-Washougal.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to move from Greenlee to Boger on the liaison for the Port of Kamis-Washougal. Any council discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any other comments or concerns on the rest of the main page of the appointments? Joyce?
Paul, I'd like to go to a mosquito control board meeting with you and see
Sure.
it.
Sure.
Okay.
You have to wear one of those masks.
They're public meetings, so if any of y'all are interested, you're welcome to come too.
Did you call for discussion?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I wanted the members of the public to know that most of the work of the council gets done on committees and in commissions. And that's where all of us spend a lot of our time. And the people that have been nominated for these positions have the experience, have the desire to do a good job, and have done a good job in the past. This is where the rubber meets the road. I know nobody pays any attention to this every year when it gets done, the first meeting of the year, but this is where the rubber meets the road and the work gets done. And I thank all my council colleagues for volunteering for all of this, and I thank the Appointments Committee for the time and thought that went into this. This is a very thoughtful document that takes into account not only everybody's desires, but everybody's background and abilities. Nice going. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dave. You did notice as you made all those nice comments that we put you in there as Mayor Pro Tem, correct?
There's an exception to every rule.
Okay, just wanted to make sure you saw that because it's up there at the top.
I did, and I thank the committee for that.
No worries. Any other questions or discussions? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendations of the Appointments Committee as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Council, if you don't mind, I would like to deviate from the agenda and move the second round of public comments down in the agenda after council member comments, so that again, some of the discussions that I'm going to bring up under mayor's report, everybody in the public has the benefit of those discussions before we end the evening. Any objections? Okay. As you know, we've had the staff working diligently, if not beyond diligently and beyond overtime, on trying to come up with some rate relief, some reduction in the rates that are scheduled to go in on January 31st for the month of January on utilities. We have some information to bring forward to you this evening for your consideration. We're not asking for any action on it this evening. We just want to bring you up to speed on where we're at, and then the process forward is that we would be back next week at your workshop meeting with even better information, yet more firmed up, and likely a proposed ordinance to change the rates and lower the rates a little bit that were scheduled for 2013. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to David and Jennifer to kind of bring us up to speed on where they're at so far.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor mentioned, you know, we've been working on rate mitigation over the last several months, a significant project. We've communicated with you with updates at a couple of points and pointed out that it's a multifaceted project that entails multiple components. Some of those components included taking another look at our CIP in both water and sewer and trying to update that and see if we can do something to push some projects out, eliminate some projects, or realize some of the savings that we've seen in those projects. That's been some of the real heavy lifting on the rate mitigation project. The other piece, as you know, was the 3P, the public-private partnership part. Over the last period of time, most recently, I just wanted to let you know that we have decided to pull a part of the project out sooner. Our plan was to bring to you information regarding all of that together and its impact on the rates. And as you'll recall, that wasn't going to happen until the end of next month in late February. Obviously, that's after the impact of the rates would be felt by at least half of our community. And so sensing a strong desire on behalf of the council and the mayor to see if we can do something sooner than that, we focused our energy most recently on that CIP part of the project and basically have stopped efforts on the 3P part so that we could focus our energy on the CIP part. And because of that, we have results from that part of it that will affect the rates. And we have some good news to share with you and the community this evening. It's preliminary information. I think it's important to point out that we've been working on this. We have checked in with our rate consultant, FCS. They have taken a look at this and have given us the preliminary green light that our efforts are appropriate and that the result of the efforts is appropriate. However, there's still some work to be done with them that will happen this week. And so we just want to make sure it's very clear. This is preliminary information. It could change a little bit, plus or minus, as a result of final fine-tuning as we work with FCS on that. So with those caveats, I'll turn it over to Jen, and she's going to share what we believe we'll be able to do for 13, 14, and 15.
So again, working with FCS, we have the top part that says the currently approved rate plan for 2013, 14, and 15. Currently, the rates for water are set to go up 13%, sewer 26.5%, and storm 14.5%, for a total bi-monthly bill of $211.13. What we're proposing, based on making some of those changes to the CIP plan to both water and sewer, the changes in water weren't significant enough in 13 and 14 to change those rates. So those will stay at the 13% for 13, 13% for 14, but then you'll notice the 13 that was projected for 2015 in water drops to 3%. So that does have rate relief, just not till 2015 in the water side. The sewer side had some of the bigger projects that we were able to push out. So where we're estimating currently for sewer would be, instead of a 26.5% increase for this year, we were able to get that down to 14% for 2013, which will make the total bi-monthly bill for 2013 $198.61, as long as you stay within that 10 unit of water. If you go over the 10 units of water, that is additional charges for the water side. 2014 will stay the same for sewer at 11%, and then the 11% projected for 15 for sewer has been adjusted to 9%. The bottom part, the savings, 2013, we're able to save 12.5% on the sewer side, which is $12.52 bi-monthly. 14, even though there are no actual percent differences for 2014 in the rates because of the decrease in the sewer, and 13, that does project to 14 as well. So there's a bi-monthly savings of $13.90. And then in 2015, that goes up to $24.79 with the water impact. Again, these are preliminary. We're working with FCS. They have a quality review process that they need to go through, and we will be fine-tuning those this week. Our anticipated plan will be to bring to workshop next week a draft ordinance that would recommend changing the rates to the proposed changes to decrease the rates prior to the first bills going out with the new rates for adoption on the 22nd.
And one other thing I should mention, some of the assumptions, particularly on our sewer CIP, presume that we're going to get approval from the Department of Ecology for some of the deferred improvements. We've had preliminary conversations with them. We feel pretty confident in our preliminary conversations with them. However, there's a lot of moving pieces to that regulatory context for us, and they have to sign off on our plan. We think that it's still prudent for you to make these adjustments, and based upon the assumption that Ecology will approve our adjusted plan. There's been 2 engineering firms that have reviewed that and are recommending it, and so I think we can have some confidence in that there's a very low risk that we'd have to make adjustments after the fact because Ecology didn't come on board with us. But I just wanted to make sure you were aware that that's one of the assumptions that is informing this.
And Dave, that's basically step one in some of the rate reduction for 2013. Do you want to talk a little bit about the FCS going forward with the cost of service analysis?
Well, as some of the more tenured council members might recall, the second phase of the previous rate study that we've done that we've been holding off on is we term the cost of service analysis. Essentially what it does is it completely overhauls our rate model, and it changes the way that we assess rates for all classes of customers. I know that a lot of attention gets paid to the 10-unit base charge that we have, which is unique to Washougal. There are some communities that have similar types of scenarios, but and that kind of becomes the focus of our attention when we talk about the cost of service analysis, that we would not have a 10-unit base charge bi-monthly, that we'd have some smaller number or no number for that base charge. That's just one small component of what is entailed in a cost of service analysis. The total bill to operate our utilities and to serve the debt for all of our improvements doesn't change as a function of the cost of service study. However, how we charge different classes of customers would change. And so as you can imagine, in any overhaul to the model, there'll be some classes of customers that would see reduction for current usage or like usage before and after, and others that would see an increase for the same usage before and after. And it's really a policy choice for the council based on the types of things that a cost of service study would get into. Depending upon the pending decision of the council ultimately on what we do with the public-private partnership, once we have that figured out, then it is our goal to move immediately into the cost of service. In talking with FCS, who's one possible provider for that, they said we really need to nail down our expense side in terms of how we're going to deliver O&M before we hire anybody to take off on the cost of service. So that could be sooner or later, just depending upon when that decision is made.
Mayor, if I might, what is the preliminary it's more than back of the envelope, obviously, they've done on, and I hate this term, public-private partnership. If it didn't violate the First Amendment, I'd introduce an ordinance that we didn't use that term. But the privatization plans, what is that? Do we have any kind of preliminary feedback on where that's headed and how much money that might save?
We do. We've received a draft preliminary report from SAIC. It has identified tentative savings that we might enjoy from 4 different options of a public-private partnership, 3 of which include different scenarios for looking at privatization of all or part of the utility O&M. I probably have some notes here. As I mentioned, we have not perfected our analysis of that report. We haven't done the things that we need to do in furtherance of SAIC's work. There's a lot of work still to be done on that, specifically cost allocation impacts, other savings or expenditures that would result from related organizational changes that would flow from SAIC's recommendations, et cetera. But their tentative information is that the range of savings that we would see, depending on which option was chosen, if the council went that direction, would be on the order of 7% to about 14.5%. I know that some information around that preliminary report was bouncing around a little bit.
Is that just 7 to 14%? That's just applied to the O&M. That's not the whole
Correct.
capital. So we're looking at O&M as what percent of our?
So I was just about to kind of
sorry.
explain what that means, because it's very important to understand what we're taking a percentage of, to understand what that is. Our O&M budget for our utilities includes some fixed costs that aren't part of that analysis. They would be unchanged on either side of a council decision regarding privatization, such as utility tax payment that the utility makes to our general fund, the debt service that we already have that will stay. Another piece, though, that we did include in the denominator, if you would, for calculating that percentage are some indirect charges. So that percentage is a percentage of what you would normally think of as O&M for staff, materials, supplies, professional services, indirect costs, but it's not inclusive of some fairly significant fixed costs. So the percentage may not be the most meaningful way to acknowledge the savings. Nonetheless, it is a number, and the range is from 7 to 14.5%. That's a little different than what's in SAIC's report right now, because we included indirects in the denominator. It brought the number down. But the dollar amount annually that represents, I think, might be a more meaningful number for you. And so that 7 to 14.5% range is on the order of just over $300,000 a year to a little over $600,000 a year. Again, that is potential savings. You won't know exactly what could be realized until you have RFPs in hand, if you would even choose to pursue RFPs. And just to give you a sort of a sense of that, there's some cost to, as you will recall, Council, there's some cost associated with a significant procurement undertaking for privatization. And that's the road that we were initially going down before we pulled back a little bit and did the feasibility analysis that we're talking about right now. What we came to understand from the sector of the industry that provides the services of helping communities go through that type of a procurement process is that it's very much like architectural services when you're going to build a building. If you're going to build a building, the fees that are charged to help you go through the process are a percentage of the cost associated with what you're doing. So when an architect, usually there's a range of percentage of the value of the building, and the architect charges you a percentage. In this arena, if you're doing getting owner's agent services for an RFP for design build of a capital facility, they will charge typically 2 to 3% of the cost of that facility to provide owner's agent services to you. If they're providing owner's agent services for a service contract, which is what the privatization would be, they typically charge a fee on the order of 5 to 10% of 1 year's value of that service contract.
Per year, do we need an owner's rep throughout the period of this?
No, it's one-time cost.
One-time cost.
One-time cost to get you through the RFP, contract negotiation, and execution. So they use 5 to 10% of 1 year's worth of that service contract.
Now, I'm, a little familiar in something, the same kind of structure between the public and private with the Hilton. And we do have an ongoing hotel consultant. Would we need to hire a consultant to kind of look over the shoulder of our operator if we did this?
That's an undetermined question. I think it's an open question. Right now, we haven't identified that. But
It's not free. If we do, it's not free.
it's not free.
Yeah.
We either have to have an in-house contract management like we currently do, PM, on that, or we need to supplement that we always get legal advice. So the numbers that fall out from those types of industry standard costs and fees, if you would, for undertaking this type of a process, going to range from just over $300,000 to almost $600,000
Upfront costs.
of one-time upfront costs plus legal costs. It doesn't include legal costs.
I'm not doing it.
And I do not currently have an estimate for what the legal costs would be. They would not be that, they wouldn't double it, but there would be some cost.
It would be in the six figures.
So, if you think about when you're at your own home, like, do I want to refinance? And you look at the closing costs that you'll roll into the principal, and you think, how many years will it take me to break even? If you were to do that with this, anywhere from a couple years or more to break even to 6-8 months to break even, depending upon what you would do. So we are not prepared as your staff to tell you that we have completed the feasibility study, that we are done with that analysis. There's quite a bit more work to do. This is some preliminary information. I think it gives you, at least at this stage, some order of magnitude information just to kind of get your hands around. Again, the percentage, you have to understand exactly what we're taking a percentage of, but we're talking 7 to 14.5% of possible savings that would result from doing something like that. These rates here are not reflective of any of that conversation.
Okay. One of the reasons that I asked Dave to try and ballpark some of those numbers, obviously we've had some discussions, in that whole discussion of the public-private partnership actually segued well from the rate discussion itself. In the discussions that we've had, that I've had with you all as council members, and I think I've had a chance to talk to each one of you either in groups or individually in regards to the public-private partnership itself and going to what I call phase 2 of it, which would be potentially the RFP work itself and engaging an owner's agent for that work. I sense a lot of hesitation, I think is probably the best term from a number of council members in moving forward on that. Obviously, we've got some significant costs that we would have in that that would be expended before we truly know what and if and where our savings would be. And as Dave says, we haven't fully vetted and brought forth the final product of even the draft report back from SAIC. We've done some work preliminarily internally, both at a management level and work with the unions as well on that, but have yet to merge all of those pieces together in order to bring that back. There's still work to be done on that, and quite frankly, it is fairly onerous work as far as staff time is concerned. My question to council this evening, and this is one, we're not asking you to take any action on rates themselves this evening. We want to make sure and bring you back the best possible information next week and following your workshop for actual action towards the end of this month, which will still be in time for the first bills going out for 2013. In regards to the public-private partnership, though, if in fact we're truly, I'm sensing a direction that we don't want to necessarily privatize the maintenance and operation of that program and look just at the design and build savings that we can get of the capital expenditures of that. If that is where council is moving towards, then it would be my recommendation that we get there sooner than later. And quite frankly, we untie the staff, all of the staff, the union and the management staff that we've got going through these analyses now, so that, one, we're not spending any more time or any more money, and there is more money to be spent on it. And in lieu of those, we begin immediately with FCS in pushing them as hard and as quickly as they can on the cost of service analysis itself. I throw that out as a discussion item. You're in a full meeting, you can certainly take action this evening. Let's start with Brent, go to Paul.
Paul, do you want to go first, Paul? Because
Yeah.
I'm talking a lot.
Just a couple of things. For the audience, we threw some things like CIP and DBOM and that kind of thing around. CIP is Capital Improvement Plan. DBOM, Design, Build, Operate, Maintain. Talk about O&M, Operate, Maintain. FTS is the name of a consulting firm.
FCS.
I'm sorry?
FCS.
FCS. My own view is that if we're going to spend $300,000, if we're going to get $300,000 in savings, we have close enough for hand grenades, 4,000 customers. That's $75 a year per customer, which is not really huge. And if we took all of this staff time, and I imagine just, kind of finger in the wind, wild guess, that it would take half again as much time as staff has already put in it to put finishing touches on this. And then the next thing to do would be to spend somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 on a owner's agent, and I don't see it. Doesn't make sense to me. My own view is that we move on.
I had one other question for Administrator Scott. One of the things you didn't talk about is risk in doing this. That has to be a factor, I think. I think theoretically, if it saved 50 cents, we ought to, and we're sure it saves 50 cents and there's no risk whatsoever that it would not save 50 cents, I think it's something we, might want to look at. But it doesn't seem to me to be, there's no accounting for risk here. We go through this, we set this whole system up, 5-10 years down the line, however long they give us under their initial contract, they could jack the rates up and we might end up paying more. Has that factor been?
No, I mean, we've just done a feasibility study. We haven't put an RFP, which is a request for proposals. We haven't put an RFP on the street. So we've heard that the typical entry contract would be on the order of 15 years. But absolutely, once that contract is over, then you either have to go back to the way you were doing it, or you have to have another contract, and that's a new negotiation, new RFP, and all of that. I think, generally speaking, the entire topic of having someone other than ourselves provide any service, but certainly when there's significant capital improvements and capital assets involved, it's a risk management exercise. And in fact, all of the different models of contracting, including for privatization of O&M, are essentially risk-based models and an assignment of risk to one party or the other and then finding the financial value of that risk, and that determines the fees. That's a large part of it. That would all come out as part of the process of responding to our request for proposals, and would be found in our proposals. But yes, absolutely. And some of that risk even falls outside of, you know, the domain of contracting and assignment of risk, just unknowns in
Labor
terms of
issues,
having somebody else do
Labor
it.
issues and things like that that are gonna pop up, morale with our own city staff. When this whole process began, I was thinking that there might be significant savings, like probably about double what you're talking about, at least, or more, before I'd be willing to proceed down this path. And with that information, I think at this time it's best to close off the considering this.
Well, one of the things that, on my initial read of the draft, there certainly is not any way around the fact that the draft report, as is, has a lot of would, shoulds, coulds, maybes, those type of languages in there, which is understandable. I don't know of too many consultants that are going to try and tie themselves down and put something in there that is more than what it is, especially for the initial blush that we've gone through on that. Your questions are heard and well received. That's the reason that I bring it up this evening as part of this discussion on the utilities themselves, and if in fact it is the desire of the council not to go towards any type of expenses and analysis towards the privatization of the actual maintenance of our operations themselves, then it would be my recommendation that at this point you direct us another direction. Jennifer?
I would definitely say that I agree with my colleagues. I am not ready to move forward with a privatization. I do not think it's a good idea. We are a small city, and I don't believe that it would be beneficial for us to do so. As far as the rate reductions that you proposed, 6%, it's not much, but it's a start. We've been asking and working towards, looking at different ways of potentially reducing these rates with, of course, the cooperation of FCS and other entities that can give us the go-ahead on that. So I'm pleased to see at least the 6%. I want us to continue looking, though. I know there's got to be more. So
Where's the 6%?
6%, 1252 from 211 is roughly 6%. No, it's just in my,
Okay, and that's why I was looking
The
at it. Was the
total
12 and a
was-
half on the sewer side?
it's 0.59, so I just rounded up to 6.
Mayor, I'd also like to say, I don't regret taking a first blush look at this. How much do you think public money was spent on just looking at the privatization aspect of this?
I don't know that we've gotten all of our invoices from SAIC, and certainly if we focus our attention really to what we've been calling option 1 in their report, which is to design, build the plant and maintain in-house operations and maintenance, and then look at all of their other recommendations around us keeping it and what we would need to do to appropriately serve the community. That's where we'll focus our energy. The overall contract was a little bit over $40,000, if you'll recall. There would be some deliverables in their scope of work that would fall off, and we wouldn't be invoiced for those. Potentially that could roll over if they were to be the firm selected to provide services for the design build of the plant. Many hours of staff time have been devoted to the project.
There was a serious possibility in my mind when we approved this contract and staff proceeding with it, we might have been talking about a lot more significant savings, and it was worth it for me, in my, business judgment, to at least take a look at that. But I think with the information we've gotten so far, it's time to cease going down this path.
Is it appropriate to make a motion along those lines?
It would
Well,
be.
I would make a motion, it's probably more like a resolution, that we ask staff to conclude this as quickly and cleanly as possible, and that at this time, we don't see real opportunities worth pursuing in a full DBOM or PPP process. Is that clear enough?
Second the motion.
I've got a motion and a second to basically continue on a path of, if I understand correctly, option 1, which is just the design build, and eliminate options 2, 3, and 4.
What were options 2, 3?
those, please?
2, 3, and 4 would have been the design, bid, build, and the design, bid, build, operate, and maintain, basically.
I'm still a little confused.
Options 2, 3, and 4 sequentially added in operations and maintenance privatization. So I can't remember if it was 2 or 4. The entirety of our operations would be privatized. And then the other one, option 2, it was just our sewer plant would be privatized. And then option 3 included the collections and distribution for water and sewer to that. So just different levels of privatization.
I still support design build. I mean, I
Right.
think that's
Yeah,
a
that's
solid.
And that's option 1.
That's option 1, correct?
Yes, I certainly hope that my motion or my resolution includes that I'm strongly in favor of design build.
Right. And just to clarify, and again, we've still got work to do even on option 1 to
Right.
come back to you with that, but there's some recommendations around staffing levels, there's some recommendations around things we could do to engage efficiencies, and I think that Councilman Boger is correct. It was good that the council took a look at this. It's exactly what you intended by doing a feasibility study, and you have some preliminary results, and you can choose to focus in.
Dave?
Is there any possibility that you could tell us more about this if we workshop this thing?
Given time, we can certainly continue analysis and bring more information.
Would that information contradict the path that's been recommended here?
My sense is that some further analysis will inform us as to what general fund impacts there would be, if any, from the different levels of privatization, how we would mitigate those, if there were any. It would also give us a path to look at what other adjustments we might make internally in our programs to adapt to having a different organization because we were privatizing our operations and maintenance. And then that might have implications in terms of savings beyond this, in terms of the general fund or even in the utility areas. But we have not undertaken that part of the analysis yet. I don't imagine it would be dramatic changes to what I was verbally expressing about the 7 to 14.5%. I wouldn't see like doubling those savings or anything like that, particularly on the utility side.
Is it safe to say, that's what we found out so far is that the savings that we'd hoped for haven't been there for us to the degree that we'd hoped?
Yeah, if it was the desire of the council to see say savings more on the order of 20 to 25% or something like that, definitely, I would say that, it's safe to say that. There's definitely some savings here, but it's incremental.
Is there any other reason that we should continue with this course of action? Any other benefit?
I think really this boils down to a choice for the council as to whether or not that level of savings is worth the additional effort and exertion for the organization in terms of an RFP process and going out on the street into this marketplace to get responses to our proposals. I think we would realize this type of savings over the course of a approximately 15-year contract. There'd be many, many issues that we would have to work through. It is no small undertaking to do something like that, but certainly that would be the result of it. Whether or not that is appropriate for this community, I think that's really the crux of the question. It's not right or wrong. I think there's value either way. There's definitely value in the option one approach, and we have value, in terms of our existing operations and maintenance, and there are recommendations in option one that will enhance our existing operations and maintenance.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you, as we get ready to vote, restate the resolution?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Other questions from council, other
I have
comments?
one other question. I understand that we are about ready to get to even, well, you clearly said that to even get there, we're going to be looking at $300,000 to $600,000 in design. I don't know what certain costs to even get to the public-private public-private partnership method, and that doesn't include legal fees.
Correct.
We're about ready to spend some more money on our contract as well that might prove to be unnecessary if there really isn't the will on the council to proceed with this. Is that correct as well?
Correct.
Right. There's, we have SAIC scoped to give us some help with the cost allocation. We kept the primary responsibility in-house, but they are to assist us. It's in their scope to assist us. They have presentations to prepare, presentation to make to you. I think the lion's share of their work has been done, but on the edges, I think there's some savings there. And then we, in order to deliver to you information similar to what's on the screen now, this rate relief on the screens related to the capital facilities plans, the capital improvement plans. Our desire, or our approach for you, if you were to want to see all four of the options, would be to show you something like this for all four of the options so that you could see what each one would mean and what 7% additional savings to this would do, what 14.5% additional savings to this would do in the rates. That's going to take quite a bit of activity, and we would have to get
Just to be
SCS
clear,
to do it.
so, because I'm not totally clear myself, but under this tentative numbers you have, the 198.61, which is what I'd be paying under
Right.
the new deal, that wouldn't necessarily drop by 7%, right? It would drop by something probably less than that, because that 7% only covers O&M, and that 198.61 includes utility tax and debt service.
Right. Correct. If the annual savings was the 300, and that was for the model where only the plant would be privatized. If there was $300,000 of annual savings into the model, I think you might see on the order of $2 a month. Maybe less than that to the base residential customer. Large customers, industrial customers, commercial customers, it'd be a different story, certainly. Keeping in mind that when we undertake the cost of service study, I would anticipate that there'll be some revised model that will make sense for the council and the community, and that you'll want to adopt. And it'll make it difficult to do a before and after comparison, because it'll be a different model.
Well, to me, the risk isn't worth $2 a month.
When you mention business, is that better or worse? You said there would be an impact, but you didn't say which
Well,
one.
because it's a percentage, the more you're paying, then the more you would save, because it's a flat percentage.
Paul?
It sounds to me, when you were discussing the work that was left to be done, that most of that is actually city staff work in terms of the demands on resources and not really, I mean, SAIC would put together the presentations, but figuring out what the implications are of changes in indirect costs and all of that kind of stuff. And frankly, if I think about that, that seems like a very difficult and kind of intellectually squirmy problem to solve. That could take significant amounts of staff time, and my sense is we're already pretty thin, and we could have some advantage to dropping that particular thing and go on with our normal kind of things that we have to do, like get out grants and all of the other things that the staff does, that this is a distraction. And if it's clear at this point that O&M, that the privatization of O&M, operations and maintenance, does not make sense, that the council does not want to go there, then I don't see any reason to do the analysis as to what that would mean.
You've restated where we're at. Other questions from council? Dave?
And my only concern, Paul, is that would the analysis on the operations and maintenance show us something that we don't already know in the way of major savings? And from what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like it.
And my concern is that what you're really studying at that point is what are the ripple effects through the rest of the city organization of privatizing operations and maintenance of the utilities.
Okay, yeah.
And if we're not going to privatize operations and maintenance, there's no reason to spend any effort to figure out the answer to how much we're going to have.
Well, if there were the prospects of major savings, I would be interested in the study. But it doesn't sound like, so far, that the prospects for major savings are there.
I agree.
Okay.
Connie Jo?
It's a hard one because the figures still are rough. As a housewife, I've clipped coupons a lot. And if I can save 2%, I'm happy to save 2%. It's still money in my pocket. So I don't disagree with anyone's opinions. I'm just saying 2% is 2% savings. I mean, that is a savings. After you've paid everybody to do what they have to do and you still save 2%, there's nothing wrong with that. Or am I saying that wrong? $2? 7% is $2. So I just throw that out. Your numbers tonight are rough, and there's still more information to come, correct?
On the privatization piece, the 7 to 14.5, I mean, that is the estimate from SAIC, the consultant. I don't see that changing. What I would submit is that there are potentially some other savings throughout the organization that might result from the ripple effect that Councilman Greenleaf was describing a few moments ago, that I was trying to describe a few moments before that, in both the utilities and the general fund. That part is very rough, and I think Councilman Shoemaker was inquiring as to whether or not that additional analysis would produce additional savings beyond this 7 to 14.5% that isn't rough. And my qualitative answer, not a numeric answer, was I didn't see it doubling, somehow doubling that
Right.
savings. I don't want to tie myself down to anything because we really have not begun that part of the analysis yet. I think there's some there, but again, whether that would make a difference given the 7 to 14.5, I've heard some of the council talk about wanting to see 20 to 25% savings. I remember when the council was deliberating whether or not even to do a feasibility study. You'll recall it was a split vote of the council, a very close vote. It was a one vote difference to do that. And if I recall that a couple of the council members voting to do the feasibility study did so even with some skepticism. And I recall even then hearing 20, 25% being a number that was something that they were looking for. I don't believe that this analysis is going to demonstrate that level of savings, even with the further steps that would be necessary. That doesn't mean it's not real savings. Every penny, every dollar, every percent is savings. But also keep in mind, this is a feasibility level analysis, and until a service provider commits themselves to us responding to a very detailed request for proposals and gives us a very detailed proposal, we have nothing. We have no savings. Our consultant did talk to one of the likely respondents and had some fairly detailed exchange of information with them. So I think this is an informed estimate, certainly, but it's not a guarantee.
Dave?
I've been reluctant to go against this proposal because I have experience in contracting out that suggests to me that it's generally a good idea. And I voted for the feasibility study on that basis to find out where the savings were and how much they were. Based on what we found out so far, I don't think I could support a further expenditure of resources to study the issue because it doesn't appear to me that the savings are there. I read the preliminary report. It raised a lot of questions for me. And I don't think at this time that it's worth the city's expenditure, a tremendous expenditure, to do the next study, which is around, what, $250,000?
That'd be a minimum.
Yeah. To pursue something that so far hasn't produced the kinds of savings we were hoping for. The federal government uses a guideline of saving 10%. If you can save 10%, if you can get somebody to bid on it and they offer a 10% savings, they'll take it. And the in-house people have to compete against that. They usually do that by paring down the organization because that's the only tool they have to get down to compete with the contractor. 7 to 14% is in that range. But this is not the federal government. If we screw it up, we don't have the resources to make it right. The federal government does. They just reach out and tap somebody's pocketbook. We can't do that here. So for all of these reasons, I'm inclined to agree with my colleagues that, as Paul said, it may be time to kill this pig.
You do have, just to clarify, and I don't want to belabor the point, you do have the ability, if we were to screw it up, to pass it along. That pass along would be to the ratepayers. I think it is a very significant statement that the council, if I'm hearing correctly, that the council is saying that that is not an option for this council, and that's commendable. That's very commendable.
Exactly my point.
I would hope, and obviously we'll come to a vote at some point here in a moment, but I would hope if we're not heading in that direction, that we would certainly take it and make it incumbent upon us at a staff level to work with the staff internally to try and continue to find efficiencies in whatever ways that we can, whether they're through the information that some of the information that we've received back from SAIC, whether it's information that we've just begun to realize ourselves just by looking at things a little bit differently and knowing that there are other alternatives out there. So hopefully that would be another way that we'd be back in front of you with some additional mitigation to rates here in the future as well. I don't think, at least not from my seat, am I gonna sit still on this if you end up killing this thing tonight. Our charge is still to move forward and continue to find efficiencies and continue to work those rates at least at a very stabilized rate, if not a downward trending rate, and still be able to meet our obligations to the state and the federal government for their guidelines. Other comments or questions from council? Okay, I've got a motion and a second on the floor, basically to proceed only with option one, the design build of our capital facilities portion of our utilities, and basically to give very little to no additional time on the privatization of our operations themselves. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, while we're on the topic of...
You're not going to give a score, are you?
No.
Okay, because there's people that are taping this. I should have announced that earlier.
Don't tell the score.
Was somebody playing tonight? The big game was yesterday. After that, I don't care to listen. But while we're on the topic of rate mitigation, I've publicly proposed a utility tax cut, and at this point, I would like to throw it out for my council colleagues, what they think about that. A utility tax cut just on our internal utilities, the water, sewer, and we don't charge a tax on stormwater. In mid-December, so I asked Administrator Scott to give me a range of what the cut would be, basically devoting our $500,000 excess reserve fund that was identified during the budget process to that. And to my disappointment, it came back at $7 bi-monthly. Is that correct? Is that what it was, or was it?
$350.
That was monthly, I thought.
It's bi-monthly.
Bi-monthly, $350. Well, I have trouble with that.
$42.
$42 a year, so
year.
that's divided by 6, that would be $7 bi-monthly. Right?
350 times 12 is 42.
Okay, but I thought you said, I was at, the $350 you said was bi-monthly. Okay, 6 divided by, last time I checked, 6 divided by.
It's only $21 annually.
So, I just, we have 5,000 ratepayers. We're talking $500,000, that should be $100 a ratepayer. Now, a lot of those are commercial, and that skews it a little bit, but I wondered if this could be structured in a creative way to where it would be just a credit against the basic hookup charge. So the $174.60 that I pay, and pretty much most other people in this community pay, it would just apply to that. And it could be in the form of a tax credit or some other kind of creative way of doing that. I know that we have, in Washington, we have a uniformity of tax requirement in the state constitution, but that only applies to property tax, and I don't believe this is a property tax. So there's no uniformity, so we can make a distinction on rates. So, so to me, at 5,000, with roughly 5,000 ratepayers at $100, the rate would be significantly more than that. Savings would be more than that. So I would request that the staff also look at alternative structures of how this $500,000 could be distributed to our ratepayers.
Okay. Paul?
Never mind.
Okay. Going back to the last couple items I have on the mayor's report, and then we'll get to council member comments and then public comments. A couple of reminders for you. Next Monday, We have a workshop here at 6 o'clock, but preceding that meeting at 5 o'clock, you all should have invitations from the Fort Vancouver Regional Library System to meet with them in our community room right behind this, the City Hall for dinner at 5 p.m. There's no cost for the dinner. They're putting the dinner on, and I think they're volunteers in each one of their communities get together and do that for the board as it travels through on some of its traveling board meetings. So that's next Monday at 5 p.m., followed at 6 p.m. by our normal workshop. And then also just a reminder of our retreat, our planning retreat, which is January 25th and 26th. Friday anticipated only to be a couple hours, and then potentially a full day session on Saturday. One of the items, David and I are working through a number of topics for discussion, timing for those. We do have Bob Knight, the president of Clark College, is coming over once again to facilitate the sessions for us. There's no cost for that, but I want to make sure that we get a handle on and are inclusive of any topics that council members would like to make sure are addressed during that retreat if we don't already have them covered. So if there are things that are near and dear to your heart that are 2013 priorities, make sure and get those to David and I probably before the end of the week. We have a meeting with Bob mid next week, I believe. So sooner the better for those topics, and we can let you know if they work into something we've already got going, if it's something we can add to it, or if it's something that maybe we want to put to a very near-term workshop instead. Comments from council? Joyce?
Well, I want to go to our water issue. I don't believe water is an option, and our city has not, we're not being affordable, we're not providing it. Obviously, from what the members of our community are telling us, our water is not affordable. We need to keep addressing this issue until we come up with a solution that works for both the city and our community. I would like to support Councilmember Boger in exploring further ways to help mitigate the costs of the water to our community. In the meantime, I suggest that anybody that is eligible for the senior rates to apply for that. That does make a difference, and that is available now through the city. So I want, we've heard you, Washougal, and I feel committed to try and help do something about this rate structure.
So,
Thank you, Joyce.
Could I ask, would you be supportive of a utility tax cut?
Yes. Yes, I would.
Jennifer?
I also attended the community meeting where citizens were discussing water rates and their issues.
Folks,
It's all right, I can talk. I won't stop. Some of the things that I took away from that meeting, really good ideas, were the suggestion to potentially move to a 5-unit system versus a 10-unit system for a minimum water usage. I think we really just need to have more discussion. I also support delving into this. This is the third year of a 5-year plan that we've started, and as I said earlier, our preliminary rate mitigation is a start. It's a small start, but I think that maybe if we start throwing out more ideas and figuring out where we can cut, that we can definitely do a little better than that. I also support a reduction of our utility tax rate. I want to see something done about the way we send out bills. Our bills are sent with a rate, but it doesn't break down what is a utility tax versus what is a utility fee. And I would like to see our bills clearly stated so people can see what they're paying for. And then they can come to us and have more questions, I'm sure. But I think it's odd to have just a bottom dollar figure. And, I know you might think it's easier for people to read that way, but I think most every other utility breaks it down for people, and I think it's our obligation to do so. And that's it. That's all I have.
Dave?
Gosh, I wish Mike Briggs were here tonight. He often complained in the past that the council doesn't cooperate with each other, and we ought to be working more closely together. If you look at the number of 7-0 votes on this council, I think that'll persuade him otherwise. But you saw a lot of 7-0 votes tonight. I would like to thank my colleagues for the confidence that they've expressed in me by electing me as Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to thank the mayor and the council and the staff and tell them I look forward to working with them. There are two types of positions on these committees that normally don't get a lot of attention. One of them is things like C-TRAN and the RTC, which are learning opportunities, and the Mayor Pro Tem falls into that also. This is where you walk in ignorant and walk out a year later knowing something. The other type is where you work yourself to death, and all these other committees fall into that category. So everybody should have a chance at a little of both of those. They can be a lot of work, but they can also be a lot of fun. I want to support my colleague, Councilman Boger, on his continuing efforts to explore the possibility of rate structure change and the possibility of a utility tax reduction. It seems to me that is one way to address the problem that we're having. Did I understand correctly, Mr. Mayor? 5 o'clock next?
5 o'clock for the dinner in the community center.
Got it. And this weekend for the?
Following-
2 weeks.
Following weekend.
25th and 26th for the retreat.
Okay, well, that's what I had it originally on my schedule, but I got an email the other day that suggested it was this weekend.
I think Rose got an incorrect one that went out, and then she sent out her correction to the correction.
I didn't get the correction. Okay, thanks a lot.
You bet. Connie Jo?
Trying to remember my question. Do you already have certain bullet points that are being covered? Can you send that to us in a preliminary email? That would be nice. Then that may spur some questions or eliminate me having to contact you.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Karen?
I just want to apologize for not being here on December 17th. It sounded like it was
Just don't tell us you were in Hawaii.
It was not. I was knee-deep in snow in Sun River, so it was beautiful, but I know, right? But as I was reading some of the blogs, I felt bad that I wasn't a part of it. So I too support Brent. That is, the number one question all around the city is, what are you doing about water rates? So, and one of my last bills was $461, if that makes anybody jealous. So I too would like to save a couple dollars on my water bill. So, and I was actually wondering though, what is Camus's utility rate? Or the tax, I mean, not the rate, yeah.
Yeah, they
don't have a utility tax.
Oh, they don't, oh, okay.
Really?
Huh.
No. Keep in mind, a utility tax is a general fund revenue source. It's one of the primary sources of revenue for communities. Camus is able to not have that because of their significant assessed valuation. They are able to deliver quality services without having to tap into one of the primary sources of general fund revenue that the legislature has afforded to municipalities.
All right, thank you so much.
Paul?
I just wanted to clean up a couple of things. Harvey, ending fund balances are capital reserves. So if we need to build a new clarifier at the wastewater treatment plant, which we do, or a new oxidation ditch, that those funds are being accumulated to pay for that. And for example, now, as Administrator Scott said, we're going through some changes in our capital improvement plan, but the last time that it was approved by Department of Ecology, we had over $15 million in capital improvements that we had to do on the sewer side, and about $4 million on the water side, off the top of my head. And Mark, one problem with adding a lot more representation on C-Tran, Vancouver, City of Vancouver has many, many times as many people as the total of Battleground, Camas, La Center, Ridgefield, Washougal, and Yakult. And so if you're going to do some kind of quasi-proportional representation there, I think we're better off the way we are, because Vancouver would end up, City of Vancouver would end up dominating the board, absolutely. It's something that we thought about a number of years ago, actually.
Let me, Paul, not to interrupt, but if the current council believes that that's what the stance of the city is, both Mayor Higgins and myself have been going down another road with C-Tran and RTC both, that we all have our own seats. So
yes,
if it's the desire of the council to continue to share a seat between another community, that is not the discussion that we're currently having, nor have we been having for the last 2 years with the heads of those organizations. And I believe the other communities are having that same conversation, so.
That's my understanding also. Thank you. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Brent?
Just a couple of questions. Are ending fund balances necessarily capital reserves? Don't they just go to wherever we designate them to go?
On the utility side, there are a number of different purposes for operating reserves. Some of them are to meet financial policies that you've established about what you carry, to meet bonding covenants, and
right.
But yes, some of it can be moved over into the capital fund, and our rate model contemplates that when it gets in excess of the amounts that are necessary for meeting the targets of the financial policies.
And my second question is, I think there's some support on this council for a utility tax cut. What do you intend to bring forward? Or, I know how to write an ordinance too. I can bring my own ordinance forward.
I think based upon what has become clear now is the first inquiry was an across-the-board percentage-based cut for all ratepayers, whether they're the base residential ratepayer or the largest industrial user. I think what I heard, and this will be helpful clarification for me, is that you would like to target that to the residential customer.
And that's based upon an observation I think we all have, that this 10-unit minimum that we're all paying for is more than what we actually use, and to have a credit against that based upon I don't expect you to go back and calculate what everybody actually uses at this point, but based upon some percentage of that, and so it would only apply to the base rate.
Right. So what we will intend to do is to explore any number of options to meet your goal, and figure out what it could be to do that. I think one thing it's important to point out, the source of general fund money to replace the lost tax revenue has been identified as a use of a portion of our unrestricted reserves, roughly $500,000. That's a one-time source of money. It can absolutely be used for this. It's general fund money. If we don't use it, if we don't continue to hold on to it, or save it for specific capital projects, or spend it on specific capital projects, essentially giving it back to those that paid that tax, even if you're doing it through a rate sort of scenario, is an appropriate use. The mayor and the council, you had that conversation. The question is, in 2014, that $500,000 isn't there anymore.
How much of that $500,000 came from 2012 experience? Was it built up over years? Was that a lot of that? Did some of that come up?
Well, the $500,000 is a piece of a larger reserve. I can't remember exactly what the number is, because we have some of it
We can do the breakdown
We,
for the analysis that shows each year what have gone,
Right.
essentially into
And,
ending
you
fund
know,
balances.
and the other thing is, we could make the ordinance just a one-year ordinance, and hopefully other measures that we've taken, such as a structuring of the base rate and deferring certain capital improvements would kick in later on, and it would smooth out the year-to-year change that our ratepayers experience.
Right. Right now, because we did a little bit of analysis along what you're looking at, in the immediate short term, unless you were to identify additional use of reserves in 14 or cuts to our general fund programming to make up for the $500,000, we would anticipate reinstating. There would be a reinstatement of that tax. However, by 2014, potentially you could have adopted a new rate model that would address some of those things. What you saw on the screen is already reflective of fairly significant punting, if you would, on many of the capital projects. Pushing things out into 2018 and beyond. It's the next phases, the more ambiguous phases of the capital improvements that would come into play for rates in 16 and 17 and 18 and beyond. It's possible that it could absorb that level and provide similar relief on the rate side. The trick is that we're mixing general fund revenue in a utility revenue conversation.
To our ratepayers, it doesn't really matter to them.
Jennifer?
I would have to hope that after we've spent tens of millions of dollars on expensive projects, expanding and improving and putting more efficiencies in place, that the rates won't continue to go up, that they would actually,
Rates-
hopefully, go down.
I don't believe you're going to see us come back with anything where rates are going to go down or be at zero.
No.
If we get back to doing that, you're going to work yourself into a deficit again, and another council is going to experience what you did in 2010. That is literally going to kick the can down
But
the
the rate
street.
drivers are really the capital improvement.
Right. And it just
project.
to point out what some of that future capital is, our comprehensive plan that develops the northeast part of town out in the urban growth area, which is currently unserved, the northwest part of town up at the top of the hill, which is in our urban growth area, currently unserved. The future capital facilities plans identify the capital facilities necessary to serve those urban areas that would ultimately annex into the city. Those improvements would be paid for by a combination of things. Systems development charges that we charge for new development goes toward that. Debt service, taking out bonds or public works trust fund loans. All of that would factor into the mix. And so if we are going to pursue that type of growth, there will be capital facilities costs that will be significant in order to be able to serve those areas. And we'll either have to incur debt to deliver those capital facilities and then have a rate model, systems development charges to support it. You know, we're talking 10 years from now, 8 years from now, 15 years from now. The only other way to do that would be to try to get grants and to try to mitigate against the cost of delivering those capital facilities. I don't anticipate, though, as the mayor mentioned, that that type of capital facilities planning would require the type of increases that were necessary for the community in this current cycle, because this current cycle was not just taking care of that batch of capital facilities. It was putting in place a number of financial policies that should have been in place already, and so there was a lot of catch-up involved. But it's an ongoing issue. one of the most important things that we work on an ongoing basis is to try to continue to grow the community, but to do that in a way that's as cost effective as we can and with the least impacts that we can possibly have. I just want to make sure that we all recognize that it's a challenge because we have that growth to serve as well. But we'll do our best to mitigate it as much as possible.
And I think that really gets to the crux of going forward beyond 2013, starting 14, 15 on through there, is the council really needs, and the public, needs to make sure that this city is doing what it needs to do to plan adequately and to know financially what those plans are going to cost. Even if we say today, we're not going to anticipate adding anything else to our system, we need to responsibly be operating the utility itself and not just getting used to saying we're not going to raise things, we're not going to raise things. Things go up in cost. And that's exactly the thinking that got us to the point we are today. And if I do nothing else, I want to make sure that we have in place things that will remind any council in the future that they do not want to go through these type of draconian increases to try and make up for things that just felt good at the time, because it will not get anybody anywhere. So, off my soapbox. Connie Jo, you had something else.
Actually,
One more thing, but that's okay.
actually, you took the words right out of my mouth. You said exactly what I had raised my hand to say. So just for the record, I just want to say we have to watch where we go in the future. We want to save ourselves money on a monthly basis, but we have to do the right thing for the structure and the facilities and the costs and so forth. So I don't need to repeat everything, but we're on the same page, that's for sure.
Jennifer?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's right. Switching topics, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the issue of retrieving animals at West Columbia Gorge Humane Society. You are in talks with them, correct, about coming up with a solution, whether it's a voucher system or whether it's being able to accept payments, so on and so forth. Would this be coming through before we sign our professional services agreement with them?
Yeah, it'd be our goal to have all of our operational changes in place so that we could make sure that we can hold them to those through the professional services agreement. I think our primary push in this area is actually they're looking at expanded hours on the weekend, which is the best thing because then there's actually, there's somebody there and
Right.
can
Well,
help.
I think that there's always been a way for people to come in and adopt over the weekends, because they do have a lot of adoptions, that happen over the weekends. There's someone there to help people fill out paperwork and so on and so forth. But I think there was the issue of people trying to come in and claim their pets that, had been picked up and couldn't take them home because they couldn't pay their fees. No volunteers could take the money, so.
And that may be the same in the future.
I understand
it may
that, but
be
what if,
something where-
what if it's got to be a way to do this. There's got to be a way.
And that's what we're looking at. I'm just saying, I don't believe your state auditor is going to allow volunteers, anybody from the public, to start taking city funds. I just really don't believe they're going to allow that. But
Well, maybe a voucher or something that someone signs with their ID. I mean, I don't know.
yeah, the areas that we're looking at is making sure that the state auditor is okay with our police officers, with our animal control officers, with some other process in there to where those are properly receipted,
Right.
and that we don't end up with a finding somewhere down the road in an audit, so.
That would be fantastic. So, obviously, our animal control officer is a representative of our city, so they could co-sign or whatever it is. All right, fantastic, thank you.
Other items from council? Public, we're at that point in the second part of, boy, everybody is jumping up. I'm not even going to finish.
I have some potential good news, maybe down the road in the future. Last Saturday, I attended a town hall meeting hosted by State Representative Liz Pike and our State Senator and Rivers, and attended by the mayor, Councilor Freeman, and Boger were also there. During that meeting, which was very enlightening in a lot of ways, our two elected officials that represent us are extremely intelligent, very sharp, and answer questions pointedly. And at that meeting, there was a discussion or a question made by somebody about the water rates, and State Representative Liz Pike stated that the Department of Ecology mandates to the city certain things without any possibility of the state supporting it financially. And then she said she has in the works 3 bills that she is working on that potentially, if they're passed, I have no idea what's in the bill, she didn't elaborate, but potentially they could alleviate some of the money issues that the city of Washougal has. And if she completes those bills and they're put forward, I really would strongly recommend everybody in this room, the council members, the mayor, city administrators, contact everybody in Olympia you can and support those issues if they will help the city, and I'm sure that they will financially. And now in conclusion, I wish to thank all the council members. I did at the town hall meeting last month, and I want to thank every one of you for your diligent, hard work and your deep thinking on the issue of the privatization. I think it's really been an eye-opener for me to see how hard all of you have worked and how many hours you have spent on your own time. Of course, you are compensated, you know, with huge amounts of money. Probably enough to get you around the corner, you know, from the gas station about 2 blocks. But I thought that was good news, and I was hoping that the mayor might have brought that issue up, that Liz Pike had brought up about the 3 bills.
We'll just see where they go. I'm hopeful.
Absolutely.
Mark?
Mark Rohr, 3437 7th Street. As far as the C-Tran issue and board members go, 9 years ago, 8 years ago, I was deeply involved in that issue where they were gonna stop all the service out to Washougal and Camas. The reason they were gonna stop the service and the pushers for that was the 3 members on the Vancouver board. They were the ones making the decision for our service. That needs to change. And the 3 commissioners too. Vancouver can give up one of their votes to Camas or Washougal, and I think Vancouver should have 1 vote. I was at many meetings where they proposed stopping the service out of here. With their 3 votes, they could have got that through. And it's not the way it should be. So we need our own vote on the board. Another issue is the mayor has the ability to limit the number of speakers on any topic. I went to meetings, those C-Tran meetings, and there was 300 people in the room. And you get up to the podium and you start talking from your heart and how much you want to save the service. And some of the members on the board would say, well, if you have the same thing to say about what the other people just said, that you don't need to talk. The people are up there trying to give out their heart and their soul about the service that they need, any service. And if I come up here and I talk about the same services somebody else just talked about, you know, whatever the issue is, and I feel that you're putting me down, I think we have the opportunity. If there was 300 people in the room here tonight, every one of them should get their 3 minutes to say what they should say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Gary or Rudy, who wants to go next?
I'm gonna keep it simple.
No worries.
We've already talked about the water storm. I didn't get a good answer on any of them, and we don't have one, and that's cool. My question to look at would be, we have a dollar bill. how much of this money, this $1, keeping it simple, is going to planning, engineering, things that don't do anything, okay? And I'm thinking around 65%, 65 cents. You got 20 cents or so going to actual construction and cost of it, and 15% for keeping it running at the end. And I could be wrong, and I wish if somebody's got some spare time, it doesn't cost me too much out of that $1, to let me know how much of this money's actually getting spent, because we could be saving millions of dollars. It's not that hard to put a water system in this town, or to fix it. I've been a member of the local laborers union for 35 years. I've done every major project in 3 counties, including drilling holes through Mount St. Helens, building Bonneville Dam, all the freeways around here. And I'm not plugging the union, I'm just saying, we can make it happen. You have people on staff already in this city that can do this work. We have local contractors 4 blocks away that have the equipment on hand at this moment to do that work. And I guarantee you, it'll come under the engineering and thinking part of it. It's not that hard. Water goes one way, do the other, sewer, the same thing. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a matter of putting it in. When you get to the other end, it does have to be processed. There is a little bit there, but we built a giant plant in Vancouver. That information is already out there. A little updating, all that. You can cut some of the overhead off and give it back. We spent $1.7 million on this pedestrian walkway. I'm the only employee in the city of Washougal that had a job, and it wasn't even full-time, so they couldn't keep me working. We gave all our money to Oregon, and all the inspectors, including the ex-mayor, I won't go into that, and a bunch of other people. But it was all wasted money, it didn't do anything with our project. So you got one guy who made 20, 25 grand max. And actually my supervisor did live in Washougal, but he's a company person from Oregon. All that money went away. $1.7 million, we couldn't spend more than 30 grand in this city. So we need to look at where our money's going. The people here deserve it. And somebody can come up with a better deal. You know, when you go to the store, you want to spend your dollar wisely. Let's let the public spend our money wisely. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Rudy. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. What I wanted to comment, I wanted to start out with tonight. To me, this is what really good local government looks like. And kind of refresh my memory if I go wrong, that this water kind of started when we had a meeting that you had proposed to explore public-private. And at that meeting, this room was completely filled, packed with people. And Mr. Mayor, at that time, you said that it wasn't necessarily your preference, but that you wanted to overturn every rock, look at every avenue, anything that we could do to try and lower the price for the people. And it appears now that you've overturned this one particular rock, and I was against the privatization because private companies have to make a profit. You sign a 15-year deal, you're into it, who knows what's gonna happen down the road. Now someone else is in charge of our water. Plus, many people that night commented that the staff that we have are the professionals that have people worked here for many, many years. People brought up the fact that they help us out when there's a snowstorm. But the main thing is, these are the people that put in the pipes. They know where they're at. They know what's going on. This is the expertise that we could have lost. So I applaud your vote tonight. I believe you're all going down, stay away from privatizing the city's water is the right move. And then I would just like to conclude my remarks tonight mainly to Councilmember Plinsky. It's unfortunately you were stuck in Sun Valley because the night was not a workshop and it was not a city council meeting. It was a special meeting called and the council members sat over there against the wall, I can only presume for their own personal safety. Because
No.
There were a lot
Just
of,
reserve seats.
when you look at the figures, and you all about it ad nauseum, they're extreme, they're hurtful for a lot of people. It puts a strain on a lot of people. It's astounding that you've got a bill as high as yours.
Yes.
But that night, even though that it was packed in the lobby, I had to wait a while to get a chair to sit down inside here. Our mayor stood right over there, and he waited till the last person had the last question, and if it would have taken till 3 a.m., the mayor would have stood there and answered anyone's question that they had. And to me, that is what local government, what good government should be. You know, I made a comment, people should come more often, so then they don't get surprised by a bill and get angry and come and somehow think that there's still people out there thinking that you're lining your pockets with all their money, which of course, Councilmember Greenlee has explained many times, that's simply not the case. But, you know, you don't know that unless you come here. So I really want to compliment you for that meeting that you had and the action you took tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Anyone else from the public? Yes. Kenny?
Thanks again for being here and for all the work. It's obvious that, you know, you guys are trying to sort of come up with a solution here, you know, I get that part. From being here as a citizen, you know, obviously you have a lot of acronyms, we can get over those, we can learn those, you know, after 10 or 15 minutes. But what's a little bit harder to understand is all the elements that drive the cost and how long those costs are going to be in place and where those funding is coming from. So are some of it coming from grants? Are, you know, where's the money coming from? How is it paid for? And so is that available today? I mean, can I go out as a citizen of Washougal and sort of understand this whole project? So how many different projects do we need to take care of? How long is it going to take to get those things funded? What are the interest rates that we're paying? What part is a grant? What part is whatever? Like, it's obviously a very complex problem that you have to solve here. But from a citizen's perspective, we have no ability to really help you solve it because we really have no idea really what needs to be done. Coming from the construction background, I'm looking at it like, okay, well, what needs to be done? What are the actual costs? Okay, who's doing the work? What rates are they charging? You know, so just some information about how we can know more about it now, and then moving forward to try to be part of the process. How do we get that information? You know, that's really the question I have.
Yeah, and Kenny, if you'd make sure and touch base with Jennifer before you leave tonight, she can probably get you some information. If you could be one of those conduits of helping us disseminate that,
Okay.
that'd be wonderful.
And is it readable, like, so that I can read through it and be like,
She has
okay.
it on one spreadsheet. It tells you interest rates, amounts, what it's going to, when it matures. She's got all kinds of
Okay,
goodies.
So just talk to Jennifer at the end? Okay, thank you guys,
You
appreciate
bet.
it, thanks for the work.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to address the council? Martha?
Good evening. Am I on? Can you hear me now? Martha Martin, Washington. I'm sorry you all have, some of you have several stages of whatever this is that's going around. It's awful, isn't it? Yeah, I know. I had it a few weeks ago. I went to the emergency room. Heart attack. You can't hear me? Nope. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Pump it up.
I'm gonna talk loud.
Good.
All right, thank you, Marilyn. A couple things came up for me, and I guess this last gentleman that came up gave me a nice segue in two issues. One is, again, the water rates. Sorry, we're still on that topic, aren't we? Anybody talking about how you help the citizen reduce their water usage? Are you all wanting us to use as much as possible?
It can't be done, I mean, as far, and get an improvement in your bill.
Correct.
Absolutely, that's what I'm
Yeah.
hearing. I'm hearing that that's not being encouraged at all.
No, Martha, what Brent's trying to say is unless you completely use all of your 10 units, right now our rates do not entice you to conserve at all. You shouldn't.
That's my point, that's one of my points, yeah.
Right.
I'm working on conservation at my house.
I would, yes, yeah.
Martha,
Let me finish my point before you all answer. I appreciate that you're being so verbal with us this evening, I appreciate that. But yes, water-saving devices, credit for that. Only you have to reduce that 10 units down to like 0, I think, or something, so you actually get an actual amount of water usage. So you're encouraging your citizens not to use a lot of water, so you pay for all your infrastructure. I think that's not what you're wanting to have people hear you say, correct? Okay. My husband's also in construction, and we're on a well, and we have water-saving devices that we use, water, rain barrels, and all kinds of things. We don't have to, but we do, just because it's the right thing to do. Water's not an unlimited resource. I know we like to think of it as this, because we look out and we go, oh my gosh, it's raining, will it ever stop? But it's not an unlimited resource in regards to clean water. So we have to be careful. Okay, enough said. I think the point was made. I'm looking forward to your retreat. Unfortunately, I work on Saturdays. I have, all of a sudden, my client load has jumped. I don't know if it has to do with the election being over, New Year's, the flu, I don't know what it is. I don't care, I'm glad. I want to be working. Will you please record your retreat so that people can hear it like you do all of your other events? This was really neat, and I know before what we've had is a very bare bones outline and sort of a minutes, but it doesn't detail a whole lot of things that you talk about. So could someone audio tape that? Would be wonderful if that could happen. And I know that might be a little tricky, but it's so important when I'm hearing about dissemination of information to the community. That your retreat is really important because what you talk about there is pretty substantial. So hopefully that can happen. And that's all I have to say. And maybe you have some comments on that.
I'll get you later.
Got it.
Thank you, Martha.
I have one more comment. I hope you allow me to do that.
You bet.
7, 8 years ago, I got to the council. I asked if I could put on a water conservation seminar. My credentials were checked, and I'm pretty versed on it. I come from Nevada, and it was mandated for water conservation. I come out here and I see water running down the street, if I had a heart attack, and that's where it all started. I come to the council and said, here's water running down the street, and where is it going? Anyway, I would like to get with the mayor sometime, make an appointment with him, and offer that water conservation seminar again. I put the seminar in, and guess how many people showed up? 0. Okay? And I would like to do that again, Mr. Mayor, with your permission, have a meeting with you and show you my presentation. I still hope I have it on this. 7 years ago is a long time. But I would like to do that if this permission is with you.
Sure, I know I've got on my notes anyway, once,
Your relative is the one that proved all that.
aha. If the council goes the direction of knocking down considerably the number of units of water, certainly one of the things that we want to make sure is in place, at least for that, are, a number of
My days off are Monday,
materials used and,
I'd like to meet with you some Monday and
sure.
talk about it. I went to the community education group over the Hathaway Park, and they were wonderful people, and they seen my presentation, it was all accepted. And I will come back to the council for your blessing before I even do anything like that.
Well, I think we certainly want to try and do those at the very onset. I would imagine, though, Mark, that if we start them from the onset, you might just still get 0 to the first one, but after they get that first bill, you might have quite a few, so. Harvey?
Mr. Mayor, one quick question. How many gallons of water are in a unit?
David?
750.
Oh, thank you.
You were told that last time, Harvey.
Well, I missed it. Apparently, my hearing aid didn't work.
Any other?
750 per unit.
Yep.
Okay.
So you have 7,500 units for 2 months, 7,500 gallons.
You're right. And probably use about 3.
Marilyn?
So in 10 units, there's 750?
No, per unit.
In 1 unit.
Couple of things I wanted to say. First of all,
some of these, or the comments about the Humane Society, I don't think David and a couple of other people, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be picking you up, but the message that the problem with the Humane Society was on weekends, it's not with the hours, it's I went there at 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, my dog was lost on Friday. Now, I'm making this particular to me because it's my experience, but it possibly is a general experience. Anyway, my dog was lost Friday evening. I went there at 10 o'clock Saturday morning. I was not allowed to have my dog until Monday when I could come in here and pay it. First of all, the look on my dog's face when I walked away is painful and I still remember it. But in addition to that, I was unfairly charged boarding. My dog was in there Friday night, but I was charged boarding for 3 nights. That's not fair. There's no reason why a person cannot be allowed to at least display a credit card and an ID and get their animal released. We're not asking anybody, any volunteer to take cash or checks. We're just asking them to note the ID of the person, photocopy it if necessary, but let the person have their animal. I don't think that's any big deal. On another topic, we are not discussing water, we're discussing sewers. Why we keep talking about water, I don't know, because Jennifer took it down, but for $60 worth of water, you pay $114 for sewers. Water is much less expensive than sewers. But I'm thinking, I buy $60 worth of water, but how come it takes up $114 in the sewer? Well, it doesn't take that much in the sewer. It goes in the garden, it goes in the chickens. We all use it in various ways, but the public ought to be able to understand that there's a difference, because that's not what you're charging us. If you go over your maximum 10, you only pay $2.65 for 11. So it doesn't make sense. What else was I going to say? Oh. We are in the watershed, I forget it's called Troutdale Watershed. Our water comes from way north of here, and it's snow melt. Lately, we've had less snow. The future shows us that we are going to have less water. This gentleman is suggesting something I think is a great idea, especially since my neighbor washes his driveway regularly. If the PUD can put a little note in there asking people to do various electrical savings, why can't we do the same thing with water? I know it's a certain form, but anyway, there must be some way to work around that. But when we talk about water, we're talking about life. If we give our water to some firm, which has been pointed out before, if they can do it cheaper than we can, something's wrong. We're going to find ourselves, I think, in trouble, because Washougal's water is special. If I were a Coca-Cola company and I had some sort of agreement with the city of Washougal, I would start bottling our water and selling it because it's really nice water. And then the next thing I know, I would be charging the city of Washougal more. I don't think that any rate that they quote in 13 is going to apply in 15 or 16 or 17. Long ago, when I got involved in the stock market, I learned about waste management. In 1976, waste management was a tiny little business run by a couple of Dutch guys. And they expanded their business, and the way they did it was they moved into a place where some other guy's collecting garbage. and they collected garbage on the cheap. So they got the contract. Or if they didn't get the contract, they went out at night and crashed the other guy's garbage collection system. They were not nice people. They are a Dutch mafia. Waste management is everywhere now, as you well know. And bottled water is everywhere. I don't see this as at all a good thing, and I am so glad you had sense enough to decide that without my assistance. For your time.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Can I, one question I have, on the animal collection, is it possible we could just bill on the weekend? Is there a,
We don't have a system in place to bill for, and I mean, that would require an AR system to set up. It's just not been current practice. But we are working with the officers to be able to accept payments on the weekend.
okay.
Just off the top of my head, we can take utility payments over the web through credit cards. That might limit some of our state auditor problems.
Again, I don't want to cut off the conversation on what we're doing with the Humane Society. David and Jennifer are going through a lot of different options.
Great.
And things sound very simple until you get to that state auditor, so I would just as soon let them work through the administrations and come back with what we can do, and I'm confident they're going to find a way to make it all function.
We have an expert in that.
I'm very confident. John?
Thanks for your patience, Mr. Mayor. I just attended the Canvas workshop before I came here. We were just slightly ahead in the area of, they talked about their workshop. Someone asked, well, what happened if somebody couldn't attend, have to do a job or something like that? Not only are they gonna record it, but they're gonna live stream it. So you could, stay home and watch it. So, I know money's tight. I sat through 6.5 hours, you guys talking about the budget. I'm sure glad you asked all those questions, but they've got that in place right now. Why don't know?
We'd rather see you.
And the, I can't tell if that mayor is just buying bigger shirts or if he's losing.
He is. I saw him at the store the other day. He is. He is.
Okay.
I'm confused because I didn't bring a pen and a paper to write down the descriptions for all the initials. And you guys were still going back and forth, and I go, that's great, because I didn't know what they mean, so I'm guilty, because I don't know what they mean, but I don't know what you're talking about, except I think I have an evaluation. Am I understanding it correctly that we spent $40,000 to get someone to do an analysis to see if they could do the work for us, or our city people to do it themselves? Am I wrong? I'm wrong.
No, I don't think you're wrong. It's just a very oversimplification of it.
Right, I want to make it bottom line simple. Okay. And we have at least $250,000 that we're not going to spend because of your vote tonight, which I congratulate you. That would be just for analysis. It would just be for a estimate of what you could do. Is that?
No, it would, what the process that would have been going forward, Janice, the analysis that we have in hand now is basically a first blush analysis. Does it make any sense at all for you to look at privatization of some of the systems?
We spent $40,000 for that.
That's where we've been. Where we would be going is to spend somewhere between $600,000 north of that to do a full-blown analysis and request for proposal to see if we can attract private companies to come in and provide those services at a lower cost than what we are now.
And not all the 40,000 was spent on
No.
private, only part of it
Yeah.
was, right?
Okay, then, if this bid analysis, for the county side, these people would do the work, does that mean the people that work for Washougal, employees for the water portion, would lose their jobs?
Depending on if it went forward and if the council allowed a contract for privatization of some of our services, most likely the individuals that the city employs to do those services would no longer be city employees.
Is it my understanding that those city employees, do they work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week on the water thing? Or do they do other things?
We've got water employees, we've got sewer employees, wastewater employees, and we've got stormwater employees, we've got parks employees, and we've got street employees in the public works side.
Do they work?
Primarily, they work in their areas that they're hired into.
Okay.
At times, they cross lines, yes.
Okay. So if they cross lines, we're saving money by having them as employees versus going out and getting this money and having someone else go. I just want to clarify, because I want to make sure I understood.
Yep.
I don't know if I was the only one that didn't. I had a question about the low income for senior citizens, was 15,000 and 20,000. There was mention that we could come in and sign up for that. Is that 15,000 and 20,000 a state? Is that right? I mean, what, do you have an idea what that would be?
We're going to bring forward to the council for consideration to change it to the state, or the federal guidelines, so that we don't have to update the code, then we would just go by the federal guidelines. So as that gets adjusted, then ours would be adjusted as well.
That's gross.
Currently, it has not been addressed for numerous years, so it is not adequate for,
With the federal, yeah.
How soon can we come in and sign up?
with, if you meet the current standards tomorrow, if you need to hit the, if it's not where you're currently at and need the other rates, it's going to be before we can bring it forward and get that approved by council.
I guess people are wanting to know how long that would take.
Once you fill out the paperwork and we,
So I mean,
oh.
read it out here.
With the action that we took this evening, it'll be a whole lot quicker.
And then there was mention of reducing from the 10 units to 5 units of water. What does that mean? Does that mean that the base rate will go down to 5 units, and we are paying more the 5 units over, or I didn't understand for sure what you meant, and I know at this time you don't have an answer to that.
Yes.
Maybe you can explain that to me.
What the process is going forth, Janice, and just so council knows, I'm sure that those phone calls will probably happen tomorrow. We'll be going back to the consultant that we've used for a number of years, who's very familiar with our systems, how we charge, do all that. And basically, we'd be asking them, don't get locked into the 5. Basically, we'd be asking them for alternatives for charging for our services versus, against the way that we currently do. Does it make sense to go to some other number? It might be 5, it might be 7, it might be 1, it might be 0.
I just wondered if I wanted to hang on to something to understand that.
Yeah, that, I would definitely stay involved in the conversation, because that could go a lot of different directions. They may have ideas that we haven't even thought about yet, because they certainly have the breadth and the knowledge of what a lot of other communities out there do, right, wrong, or otherwise, that may be beneficial to Washougal that Washougal's never looked at. Anyone else from the public? This was great information. I think we only had 15, 16 people got up tonight. It was great information. With that, David, any other items that you can think of that we haven't brought forward this evening?
There's an open house, and BPA's having an open house in Camas.
Oh, Thursday night?
Thursday, I believe, 5 to 9.
5 to 9 o'clock?
And public comments are 6 to 7:30. If you go to the BPA
I do-
website.
Yeah, go to the website. My understanding from what we got today is that it is not, they will take public comments if you want to write them down, or if you want to voice them to somebody. It's an open house, is my understanding. They're going to have a lot of pretty pictures. They're going to have some different areas, some different staff, and that type of stuff, so. I didn't understand.
I thought they were going to take some comments, but not respond to them, but I think they were going to set up, but I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Liz.
Yeah, what I saw today, it had it as an open house kind of thing, come mingle, be there, do whatever you might do. So definitely go to the BPA's website, and I think the Columbian had it in there this morning as well.
At the Camas City Council, they indicated they would take a comments, at least from the mayor, at least they thought so.
I think they'll take comment from anybody. I don't know that they're going to have this type of a forum for you to address a bunch of folks, or if they're just going to say, thank you for the letter, or I'll take down your comments. But yeah, they're definitely taking comment. Council, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second?
I've got a motion and a second for adjournment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It was a long, short meeting.